Yeah, I'm taking a long time. Ignore the new stills. So I was doing some art studies and enjoying Dispatch, then suddenly this video popped into my recommendations, a video by Fantagonistic. Recommendations want me to see what DC has been up to, I guess. Well, I was in for a wild ride. Titled as Bat Fam, since I got into DC this year for just a few months, I don't need to say how unappealing and bad this looks. Look at it.
Look at this! Look! 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 What the fuck is this?
Today, this is about a particular design. It's about Batman's son. Which one? This one. At first glance, you may think they de-aged Dick Grayson. I thought so, because I remember DC Supergirls, and yeah, he was de-aged there, albeit also very different. This kid here in the Bat Fam show looks happy and energetic. You would think it was Dick. Nope. That's Damian Wayne. It's a complete contrast because the Damian we all know is arrogant and cold. That's the complete opposite. I got used to this Damian, and I actually like his character development. If not, he is the most developed character from being trained as an assassin to then being humbled and living up to the Robin mantle. And on top of that, Damian's design looks like you can place him in a cartoon like Primos. It's probably the nose. When I look at the style of Bat Fam here, it would have been alright if it was its own show, not slapping a Batman IP, because once you add a known IP, expect a cyclone of backlash to storm in. So, I did what I usually do, redesign. Now, I went backwards and showed the design I drew, which isn't in my usual style, and I tried to go for a cartoon style. I wanted to get inspired with early 2000 shows I grew up with. Some examples I'm using are primarily more angular with bold lines and shapes, like Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, Danny Phantom, Fairly Odd Parents, American Dragon, Jake Long, and whatever I remember. However, I'm refining this design of Damian and adding more to it. Unlike the 2025 Bat Fam show, I want to showcase his serious and grumpy personality. I still kept the freckles. I think it's a nice little detail. I don't believe Damian would ever suit that side-swept fringe haircut, a bit reminiscent of when Nightwing had that style in the Arkham Knight game. It's just going to remind me of Dick Grayson. We don't need Damian to be Dick 2.0 in disguise. Damian mostly suits the slick back hair or the spiked up hair. It just sets him apart from his brothers, considering and coincidentally they all have dark hair. The first attire, I want him to look rather preppy, but not too much detail since he's vertically challenged to hell. Yes, I'm not changing the height. It's funny and also reminds me of cartoons I watched growing up. At some point, I got rid of the belt and other details to maintain the simplicity of this design. His costume in the show, Damian is just a mini Batman with his cowl ears being fucking long. He wouldn't even be called Robin, probably Bat-Kid, Bat-Mite, Bat-Boy, or Mini-Bat. Initially, I made his cape wrap around his body rather comically, but somewhat adorable because of how extremely short he is for this. In addition to his costume, I drew an open cloak version showcasing his attire underneath. He's Robin again, so why not continue with the classic? So, now for the story. From what I've heard and seen, the show has Claire, or Volcana, trying to adjust to her new home after being de-aged from the Lazarus Pit. And Damian's just a happy little kid who wants to make connections with Claire like an older sister figure. Alright, it's not bad, but I don't like it. Here's somewhat of a rewrite. It's short. First of all, scrap Volcana. There's a roster of Bat Family characters that can replace her to be an older sibling, which is anyone in the list rather than this giant red hair brush. Damian should be the one who is trying to adjust to a regular lifestyle compared to his upbringing from being raised from the League of Assassins. Of course, in this version, he is still the arrogant and cold piece of work that everyone knows. Whether loved or hated or in the middle, he's a challenge for the Bat Family, which they also have to adjust with the new addition. Damian being very strong-minded in the beginning, believing blood is thicker than water, Damian doesn't see Dick, Jason, and Tim as brothers due to them being adopted. He has a mindset that family is by blood. However, he will learn over time it's the people that care and support emotionally and socially that make them family. Each of the brothers reflect the core aspects of Batman. From Dick's empathy, Tim's intellect, and Jason's morality, they would in some way shape Damian in learning to become a better person and perhaps earning himself to take the Robin mantle. The interactions with his brothers are going to be quite the range, as I already mentioned in a previous video how Damian and Tim would interact, but to summarize, it's essentially a rivalry between them and Damian's jealousy of how Tim has a higher intelligence than him and can't stand it. Hence, Tim and Damian get into more sibling hijinks, except Damian has respect for Tim as he gets to understand how much Tim had to work to get where he is, especially in combat, and what it takes in helping people in Gotham. I'll only mention Tim for the cartoon variant. Tim tries to alleviate any of his older brothers from trying to step in by taking the responsibility as best he can, but at times fails. Dick, being the oldest, he's going to be more sympathetic and patient towards Damian, despite how Damian treats him and the rest. He always maintains hope that eventually Damian would open up. His emotional availability will definitely conflict with Damian's closed-offness. Damian doesn't always understand Dick's lighthearted and charismatic behavior, mistaking that he's immature for someone who's older. Over time, Damian would see that Dick always saw the best in him, and a sense of hope that he could change when others won't believe it. Moving on, with the interactions between Damian and Jason, Damian would be the one testing Jason's reactions, whether it's provoking or sarcasm, but it just ends with Jason staring at him and it's just utter silence, until Jason might say a sarcastic remark and that may set Damian off. While Jason has a history of violence, he's far more reasonable compared to Damian at this moment. Despite this, Damian would see they have some similarities he can relate to, and possibly seek some advice, especially when Damian is struggling with his morale and identity within the family. I like to think of this version of Damian somewhat wants to emulate his father and by extension his brothers in wanting a connection and bond without even mentioning it. This can be an occurrence since Damian is still a kid and will echo those actions, even if he never admits it. The saying of imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery, actions speak louder than words, and it's wholesome and funny if that's showcased. By far, Damian is the simplest design-wise. With the inspirations I took, it was necessary, and given how he looks, it's going to be that way. Moreover, the expressions are fun, and be ready for the rest of the Bat Boys in the cartoon style. Slowly.